September 11th, 2001, a day that changed our nation forever. We witnessed the unimaginable as the Twin Towers fell. Thousands of lives were lost in an act of terror that shook the world. In the face of this tragedy, heroes emerged. Firefighters, police officers, and countless brave souls who ran towards danger to save others. Across the nation and here in Hillsborough County, we honor the memory of those we lost and celebrate the heroism of those who gave everything. We pay tribute to the victims, the families, and the heroes of 9/11. We stand together as a community. Hillsborough County, honoring the past, protecting the future.
So go ahead, yeah, change your grip. There you go.
Alright, so now twist it.
So you gotta open it.
Stop.
Stop. Alright, close it.
There you go.
And then we're gonna dig deeper down in.
Deeper in there, probably?
Yeah, deeper in.
Let it cut all the way.
Yep, keep going. Keep going. Stop.
Put my mic on. Welcome to the September 9th meeting of the Hillsborough County Charter Review Board. We're meeting tonight, and we got a really good attendance, and we got some interesting topics, and we got 3 people that are going to be coming in remote. But thank all the rest of you for being here, and we do have 100% participation, so delighted for that. As usual, I'd like to, after calling me into order, is to ask our chaplain, Rick Coons, for some prayerful thoughts. I think we're going to use them well tonight, so
Yeah, okay.
please
Just
proceed.
go straight to prayer.
Yeah.
Let's pray together. Almighty God, Creator, our Lord and Sovereign, we thank you once again for this opportunity that you've given us. Thank you. We pray that you would empower us. When we read your word, we see that your followers are called sojourners, just passing through this world and here for a time before entering a distinct future. Until that time, you call us to be stewards of our time and our resources, our talents and our positions. And each one of us has been entrusted with our position, and we want to be found faithful. To that end, Lord, grant us listening ears, understanding, and wisdom to make wise decisions. Help us to count our days until faith turns to sight. And until that day, let our hearts be attuned to you and to your ways. We pray all this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you very much, Rick. Would you all stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all for, again, for joining. We, just to go look at the agenda quickly, the financial impact statement from Karen Jarosh is going to be delayed a month. There was something she would like inserted in there. So the only topic of business will be item number 4, the discussion of the district composition. So there are a couple remarks that came out of the meetings, and I think would you go ahead and make those? You mentioned you had 2 of them that 2 things you would like to get on the record. So go
certainly.
ahead.
For the record, Julia Mandel,
Yeah.
Senior Assistant County Attorney. I believe Mary Helen Ferris is on the line, but she is dealing with her other role as an election attorney for the supervisor, and it's a special election today, but she is available, and we'll make sure I don't do anything to screw anything up, which is really very valuable for me. I did want to make a few comments before we got started today regarding meetings and some discussions that have been had. The first thing I wanted to just indicate, and this issue came to my attention, and I think a lot of us that have been in this world didn't really think about it, but there was a lot of discussion at the last meeting regarding proposed amendments by Commissioner Miller, and we had a lot of discussions about that. But I think for the purposes of the record, I want to make it clear that I was Commissioner Les Miller, and those were previous conversations, and we have a commissioner today, Commissioner Christine Miller, and those were not discussions or propositions that she had brought forward. And like I said, I think all of us who've been in this world may not have really been attuned to that, but I think it is important that we make that clear, that there are other Millers, and those were not things that were propagated by Commissioner Christine Miller, but of course, prior Commissioner Les Miller. And on that topic, I also wanted to indicate that you will see in your backup, I had provided some examples of some of the documents that were discussed in previous, either by the commission or in previous charter review boards, and documents that were prepared for showing how you would look at a change into the commission makeup. Those were not intended to be suggestions. Those were not intended to be, something for you to review and comment on. Those were literally just examples that have been out there in the past to inform your conversation today. So even though I said that in the memo, I wanted to make that clear. Those are not documents, working documents. Those are documents simply for example purposes, just so you see the different ways you deal with the makeup, how you draft a document, depending on any decisions that come out of this board. I have a couple more comments. The third comment I wanted to make related to conversations that have been had. They were had last at the last meeting and in some of the correspondence relating to if you were to make a decision to put on the ballot and ultimately the voters decided to change the makeup of the Board of County Commission, either with the number of single-member districts or adding additional members, that would inform another process, which is a redistricting process and the creation of maps. This board is not involved or engaged in any way in the creation of maps. Those happen after the fact. There's a very distinct process that exists. And of course, any federal or state laws regarding redistricting, there's been some federal case law that's come out of Jacksonville, will obligate those districts to be in compliance with federal and state law, and there is a process for that. But I wanted to make that clear because I think it's important to understand that this discussion that is on the agenda today relating to a potential change in the makeup of the Board of County Commissioners is not related to the idea of the creation of the maps. That is simply just creating the number and how that makeup would look if you do make those changes. And I'm happy to have further conversations on that issue, but I wanted to just make that clear for the purposes of your discussion today. I think that's all of my comments. I'm happy to provide any other information. And like I said, Mary Helen is on the line, just in case I say something wrong. She'll be sure to correct me.
I'm sure, thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Julie? Yeah? Okay, thank you. Thank you, I appreciate it. Well, we're open for public comments, and we're delighted to have commissioners and a former commissioner. So we'll begin now with our public comments. Then what I would like to do is we'll go through all the material that was given out in preparation for this meeting and all the material that came in today, because quite a bit came in. And so before we begin any discussion of the topic, I'd like to make sure we're all up to speed, the same level of familiarity with the material that we've been sent. So I'd like to recognize our Vice Chair, Christine Miller, for remarks. I think our agenda says 3 minutes, but I'm not going to do it that way. I'd like you to say whatever you want to say in the time you want to say it, and even leave some time for questions at the end. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you. I'm pretty close to 3 minutes, so we're good. Thank you for inviting me to be a part of this very important discussion on the BOCC district composition, and thank you for your thoughtful work and time each of you has invested in this process. As you know, Hillsborough County is one of the fastest growing counties in Florida and now home to more than 1.5 million residents, larger than several U.S. states. With this rapid growth, it has become increasingly difficult for residents to feel a strong and direct connection with their elected representatives. Under the current system, countywide commissioners are responsible for all 1.5 million residents, with single-member commissioners like myself representing very large districts. I believe the data that was provided to each of you from 2024 shows that I was at about 440,000 residents. This can leave communities feeling their voices are diluted, and in my opinion, we need to be doing a better job of ensuring that they are heard. With smaller districts, commissioners can be closer to their constituents, thereby increasing accountability, improving constituent services, and ensuring that neighborhood-level concerns are heard at a county level. Single-member districts foster stronger advocacy, clearer accountability, and decisions that are better reflect the unique needs of each area. Focused leadership can prevent inefficiencies, improve oversight, and ensure tax dollars are used wisely, ultimately benefiting all residents, and is quite the topic of conversation these days. This is not about adding to the bureaucracy. It's about ensuring fair and effective representation. And as reviewed in the last meeting, the cost of making these changes is modest compared to the long-term value of more accessible and responsive leadership. I encourage each of you to remain focused on the task of strengthening representation through an expanded board structure, preferably through 9 single-member districts. From my own research, I believe that 9 single districts not only preserves a majority African American district per the Voting Rights Act, but could add a majority Hispanic one as well. With all of that, I feel so strongly that the good people of Hillsborough County deserve better representation that I would be amenable to a 9-commissioner districts with a 7-2 split, because I believe it would help address many of the concerns and could be considered a compromise tonight. As you know, I've been following along with your meetings, and I would like to address the conversation around the maps. I think it's important for you to stay focused and have your attention on the very important decision that you are making tonight and not to get distracted by the maps. I believe the attorney did a very good job tonight explaining the process that the maps come after this has been approved by the citizens and is in a completely different structure than the decision that you all have ahead of you. So before I wrap up, it's important to note that there are active discussions in Tallahassee about changing how counties are represented. Similar legislation was already filed in 2025 and is expected again this year, this next session. If the Charter Review Board cannot come to a decision, the state may ultimately decide this issue for us. By you all acting now, you ensure that the change reflects the unique needs of our residents and that Hillsborough keeps control of its own future. I truly appreciate the opportunity to be a part of this discussion. Together, we have the chance to shape a structure that will serve our residents more effectively, give every community a stronger voice, and ensure Hillsborough future is guided by the people who call it home. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for those thoughtful remarks. Let me recognize Ms. Droege.
Thank you, Commissioner Miller. We're really appreciative of you being here tonight. I have one quick question for you, and I'm going to ask it of every commissioner who speaks. How would you feel in order to increase the responsiveness and ability to respond and be closer to the constituents? How would you feel about moving the commissioners, if a different commission district was approved, moving the commissioners out of county center and into their own districts?
Well, I spend a great deal of time in my district on a regular basis. I design my week around that specifically for that. So when I'm in South County, I try to take several meetings in one day and be down in South County for that day during the week. I would be very agreeable to an office in my county. I mean, in my district, I think that it gives the people direct access to me. I don't know about the logistics because we still need offices downtown. So I think there may be a cost effect to that. We do need offices downtown, for example, on board days or a day like today. I think I've taken 10 meetings today in the building when we're meeting with people that want to get issues in front of us. So we'd have to see how that works.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Other questions? Mr. Taylor?
Thank you so much. Very detailed, greatly appreciated. So in my conversations with folks, whether you're going to 9 single member or we'll take the 7-2 hybrid option, you know, the benefit they would say now of our makeup of the at-larges is that, you know, you have, you know, the at-larges can help with the district commissioners on items. You take that away, they think, you know, potentially could be an issue. I'm agnostic as to that right now, just curious as to, let's say it does pan out to be 9 single-member districts. Is that a concern or, you know, we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out how to keep government going, but we'd just love to hear your take on that.
So there was a couple of questions in there, and I think I'm going to answer it a couple of ways. One, if you look in your packet, so if you can count, right, so you can see Commissioner Bowles submitted in your packet today that he supports 9 single members. He's a current countywide, so I encourage you to read his letter, and, you know, perhaps he'll come in another time. I believe he spoke the last time I was here as well. So I think that if you have a countywide telling you his position on that he wants to offer better representation to the people of Hillsborough County, I think that should speak volumes to you. The argument that I've heard regularly about, you know, well, how can we, you know, represent accurately? I take the state reps as an option, right? So like state reps, do they not work together for the good of their county? I believe that we would do that. We work together on projects all the time as county commissioners now. But I think I'm going to defer the rest of that to, you have another countywide commissioner that's speaking tonight. I actually don't know that I've seen any data on where the third countywide commissioner is on the position. But Commissioner Wussel speaking, I think, after me. So you can ask him. Did I answer your question?
You did.
I did. Anyone else?
Ms. Holt?
I have just a few questions, but thank you for coming tonight.
Are you guys okay with this, or do you want to take all the questions at the end? I'm fine with whatever. Okay.
I prefer one-on-one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
So I've heard you say that we should ignore the maps, and so if we were to do that, I'm trying to figure out how we could as we're voting, as we're making decisions, as we're checking our conscience here, how would we be able to guarantee the fact that we would have an
There is no
African-
guarantee. Your job that you were asked to do is to decide whether the people deserve more representation. And so that would be going from 7 to 9. That is the decision. I have been following along on this review, and I think that a lot of the discussions, they go down all of these avenues, and the reality is that the decision is clear that is before you. Do we need more representation for the people of Hillsborough County, or do we not? And then you have to trust the processes that will follow, and that can either be more clarified in a more detail by the attorneys, or you just have to know that that's the process.
I just thought I had heard you say that there would be a way to preserve the African-American seat, and so obviously it's been something that's been brought up quite a few times. The other question I have for you is, again, you know, we've all heard the same thing, that there's going to be legislation that's going to be filed in Tallahassee, and so whatever we decide to do here, we could very well find ourselves with whatever we recommend being on the ballot, and at the same time something coming from Tallahassee also being on the ballot at the same time. Can you share with me what your feelings are about that? Because again, the legislation, if I recall correctly, it didn't just involve commissioners, it also involved the school board.
Yeah, I'm not specific on that. I will tell you this. I believe in each of you that you're going to come to the best decision for the people of Hillsborough County. So I want to start with that. I've seen some of the options that were out there, and I don't think that they're the best. And one of them had us going to 13 commissioners by population. I think that that doesn't take into the account the expenses that would be incurred and different things like that. So I feel like if we make the decision and that's what we put forth, I have confidence that that this body will put forth the best ballot initiative.
And although I understand what you're saying in terms of population, we have a lot of countywide constitutional officers that also have to serve that same population and seem to do so in an efficient way and in a way that's.
They have much larger staffs.
Okay, so and I do recall your first conversation with us was the number of calls you get and the number of requests that you get for people to be assisted. Is there a more efficient way to handle those types of calls and that type of community contact? Because sometimes, I think what I've heard is that maybe the county-wide commissioners aren't as receptive to district phone calls, and that they'll just bump them off to somebody else.
I think that depends on the commissioner, but I think more importantly, it's how the system, right? So if I'm at home and I have an issue because my trash can got hit by the garbage truck and I need my trash can repaired, do I look up the countywide or do I look up the district that I live in? The call naturally goes to the district that we live in. I believe that's just human nature. I don't think it has anything to do with the level of work or lack of work that a countywide wants to do.
And I think one of the earlier commissioners that spoke mentioned that when it comes to making fiscal decisions, that if you're a single member representative, what you're wanting to do is take the money to your district. And assuming for a moment that everything is single member districts, I have thought about this. Does that mean that more power really will lie with the county administrator as opposed to the commissioners themselves, because that is the person that will be tasked with bringing to you a budget that works? And whereas now it requires 4 individuals, correct, on the budget? How would you get that consensus? I know you say that y'all work well together, and I understand that. But when you go to all single-member districts, then the fiscal aspects of this really become more, this is my district, I'm the one that's going to get the trash can call. I'm the one that's going to be at the Publix, and they're going to say, "What are you doing voting for something else in South Tampa or West Tampa, and not?"
Do you think
South
that all of
County?"
your state representatives can work together?
No, I do not. So no, I do
Therein
not.
lies the problem.
I'm sorry.
Yes. I actually think we as commissioners do a really good job working together, supporting important projects, because decisions that are made in my district affect all members of the community. So I see where you're going with this line, and I don't know, it feels a little bit like trickery, and I don't actually know because it's all speculation. I would be interested in you asking that same question to Commissioner Wuskell. He loves budget questions. So when he's up.
Well, it's not meant to be tricky. tricky in any way whatsoever. It really is, frankly, in dealing with people over the last 32 years, when you're talking to somebody whose district is being impacted, there is no doubt that you're going to catch that person's ear. There's no doubt about it. And so when you have the setup that you have now, and you will go and you will talk to 4 commissioners in order to move your project
Does
forward
it happen
in some
that way now?
I think it does. I think it did before. I think, people have to do that. You have to talk to people about moving projects forward. And I also, I guess in looking at the city council also here in Tampa, they also represent approximately 400,000 or 500,000 people each themselves. Do you see any correlation between how the city is run and what you're suggesting in terms of going to single-member districts?
No. No, I don't. I'm not exactly sure how to go forward from here, other than I feel like I'm trying to be as respectful as I can be. You're going down a lot of what-if scenarios, and I really would like to see a decision come out of this. I talked about the importance of this decision staying here with the people of Hillsborough County, and if you end up on no decision because of all of these what-if scenarios, then the state will likely decide it for us.
No, I'm assuming for a moment that I believe in expansion, but I don't believe in the 7-2 number, for instance, and I don't believe in single district numbers. And perhaps in preserving instead, again, the ability to have a person here as a citizen be able to vote for the majority of the people that are supposed to be representing the county in its totality. That's where I'm coming from. It's not in any way intended to, I've been pretty upfront from the beginning.
Yes, ma'am.
That my issue is I want the majority of the commissioners to be able to think big picture, the entire county, and long-term projection. I don't think that's tricky in any fashion. I think it's very upfront.
So in that same fashion, I've been very upfront about where I stand on the position, and we just don't stand on the same side of it. And that's why you all get to have this very difficult discussion tonight, and I'm going to be home for the first time this week, or at least in the last several business days, and tuck my daughter in after the other 2 commissioners speak. So I wish you all much luck in your discussions tonight.
I have a follow-on question. It's quick. It came from your exchange with Julie. Something also you said about staffing. So my question would be, do you think that in addition to this, that the commissioners should have larger staffs, maybe more aides?
I would have to say that most commission districts are doing an excellent job responding to the people. I just feel like they're going to have the closer form of government. You talked about us being able to be in our districts, maybe even have our offices in the district. That's going to put us closer to the people. I'm not saying that we need to expand staff. I do think that if you look across the states, and I did get all of the data numbers-wise, it's very possible that we should be expanding. This is a great time for us to do it population-wise. Someone over here, Mr. White, did you have a question?
Mr. White, and then I've got 2 people remote that want to chime in.
I wasn't going to let the commissioner leave without me voicing my concern. You made a statement that's kind of troubling a little bit. It took me back, really, because you made a comment that there's no guarantees, right, related to the district and the African Americans serving on the commission if we go to 9 seats. That's retrogression. We have a guarantee now. We have an African
legally
American
bound, right?
We have an African American on the board now. Why would I vote to take that away? Why would I vote to vote out something that removes that guarantee? Why would I do that?
It would be legal either way. It's required under the voters, the Voters' Rights Act.
Well, you made a comment that if we voted out of 9 and you were responsible for redrawing, you will be. You're the sitting commissioner.
It's a minority district.
Listen to me.
Yes.
You made a comment, and I need you to clarify this for the public, for the NACP, for LOLAC, for the African American people, the Hispanic citizens, since the sitting commission would be the body that redraw and draw the new districts. You made a comment that there will be no guarantees that there will be a majority and minority seat. Did I hear that correctly?
You misunderstood.
I hope
You
so.
asked that there would be, you said that you wanted a guarantee that it would be an African-American commissioner. It's an African-American seat.
Okay.
Do you understand?
I do.
Yes.
I want to make sure, that's very important.
And the law says that there would be. Am I correct?
I think that's kind of where the map question gets a little bit difficult to analyze, because the role right now is not the drawing of the maps. That's not to say that there aren't legal obligations when those maps get drawn.
Yeah,
So I think that's why I made
I don't
the
wanna
statement
get
at the
into the
beginning,
maps.
because that is kind of what I
I
was
think
trying
you're
to
asking for
say.
clarification on my
Commissioner, I do
position. I
not
think you're
want-
asking for clarification on my position. I 100% feel that there should be representation for the African-American community and the Hispanic community. And I believe 9 is the answer that would get us there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Ms.
The online
Droege?
question, sir?
I've got 2 people on remote that have got hands raised. So let me start with Dr. Collins. Can you voice your question, or can you hear me, Dr. Collins?
Very well, thank you. I wanted to ask Commissioner Miller almost the same question, because I too, well, let me just say it this way. I believe that the population growth in Hillsborough County somewhat justify increasing representation for the people. I do not believe that all commissioners work to come together to figure out what's best. The biggest complaint that I oftentimes hear is the housing issue, and why they can't get together, and why they're not doing this, and why they're taking money out. So when we look at those kind of issues, I want to make sure that minority representation is there. And maybe I didn't hear it right. I just heard the other board member address it. But I want to know that, and I like the 9 that you're talking about, and potentially the 7-2 rather than a 6-3 or whatever. But if we're going to do that, and then there are going to be some map drawings, and hopefully they're going to be able to follow some rules and laws that have already been set up, and we can eliminate, and I have to go on and say it as it is, we make sure those maps are drawn right, covering the fact that we'll have an African-American seat, we'll have a Hispanic seat, and maybe another seat, or is there another way to do it? And I want to ask you your opinion about, and this is a crazy one, but this, I need to hear it. If we need to have more staff to support the commissioners, have we thought about, or is it necessary that we pool the staff, and those staffs are working collaboratively together, and they'll be working with a responsibility to one commissioner, but they will be working collectively for the whole county?
I can answer that.
I'm really
Via the attorney, I believe that would be in breach of sunshine.
Okay, all right, so.
Let me just comment on that for 1 second, just because I think, your question is a general question, but the problem is how it operates and how they manage to deal with each other today, because we have more than one commissioner in the room, we have to be a little cognizant of. So I think ultimately, as part of your discussion, you certainly can have that, but I think that's more of a conversation with us, whether or not that might be an option. But I will also say that there's nothing right now in the charter that relates directly to how many staff people each commissioner gets or how they work together. And so they do have the right to staff. So that there's just a lot with that part of the conversation. So I just would be cognizant of that.
But I also want to just caution again, I feel like it got lost in my comments. Focus on the task at hand tonight, and that is, do you want to go to 9 commissioners? Do you want that to look like a 7-2 split, 9 singles? I think focusing on that, having a discussion about our staff would be secondary to that. I think that could be done at another time. And I really want this board to be able to be responsible for affecting this change for the people of Hillsborough County. And I think that you're only going to be able to do that by focusing, kind of narrowing that focus in on the very important discussion that you're having tonight on 9 single-member districts, or whether that's a 7-2. So
thank you.
And my last point on that is, Commissioner Miller, thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it, and I know how busy you all are. But my biggest thing is just what you just said. We feel that there need to be more I feel there need to be more representation that expands so that we can reduce the volume of load. However, in that expansion, To me, that is not the most important thing. The most important thing, as we expand, is to maintain what we already have for representation and perhaps improve on it. And that is to make sure that we expand and we make sure that we maintain it. And I thought I heard in there that there was no way to assure that or confirm that. And so to the whole Charter Review Board, that's one of my biggest concerns when we get ready to start doing voting. We want to give more so that the residents will be serviced better. But I want to make sure that all residents are considered in that service line. And
I
that
couldn't
would be
agree
to
with
make
you
sure
more.
perhaps.
Couldn't agree with you more, but I do believe that there's a legal answer in there related to the Voter Rights Act. I think that's what you're referring to, but I couldn't agree more with your comments.
Ms. Snively?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, I just want to say thank you to Commissioner Miller for coming and making some comments at the last couple of meetings and fielding questions. I know that probably wasn't necessary to the extent that we're asking questions, was not anticipated as much this evening. So thank you for being a good sport and doing that. And just really, I want to just say first, I appreciate the advocacy that you are lending to this particular idea and the fact that you're wanting us to focus on the task at hand, which I totally agree with. I do think that 9 single-member districts could provide better representation, both to the African American and the Hispanic community, lending more diversity to the BOCC. And I'm not going to get, I agree also that I don't think we should get hung up on the maps at this particular juncture, because that is something that's going to lie in the hands of the BOCC and transparency to the community. I think there, putting it at the forefront, your desire to make sure that there's better representation on the board and better connection to communities by single member districts speaks a lot. And I hope that, and I think that the majority of the BOCC believes the same thing, that there's going to be better representation. There's obviously no particular guarantee about Hispanic district, but I think we all agree that we would like to see more representation, more diverse representation on the BOCC. And then the analogy of the state representation working, I know some people may not agree with that, but they all are single member districts in the Senate and the Florida House, and they are all working together to make sure that they are representing their own districts, but as a whole, the state of Florida. And I think the BOCC has the capacity to do equally as well as the Florida legislature does in representing their individual districts. And then on the meeting locations, I wanted to ask, I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this question, but I got asked that question as a school board member. I didn't spend a whole lot of time downtown in the downtown office. I'm District 4 over on East Hillsborough County, and it was like an eternity away from my district, but I spent most of the time in my district too. And correct me if I'm wrong, you probably spend 95% of your time in your district, and there's always a place that you can meet, because I don't necessarily agree with having a separate meeting location for your district. Your district's huge. I don't even know where you'd put a particular office, honestly. However, there are enough public buildings in every district where you could meet. You could meet at not just a local business like a Starbucks or any coffee shop or mom and pop place. Local businesses would love to have you, but also you got a ton of government buildings all over your district that people would be willing to meet you at. And that's what I did. As a school board member, I'd either meet the school. If you weren't comfortable meeting the school, we'd meet somewhere else. And that problem, I think, is solved by just finding another place to meet that is not necessarily spending extra money in investing in a second location or another location in your district. So I agree that we've got to trust the map process and the transparency that the BOCC brings to that. I'm not sure I really have a question in there because most questions were answered, but I just really wanted to state that I agree with your comments. And so I appreciate the fact that you stand for 9 single-member districts, and the fact that you want to make sure that commissioners are more in touch with their constituents and have less constituents so they can serve their districts better. So thank you for being here tonight and making your comments.
So as I wrap up, thank you again for the hard work that you're doing. I really sincerely appreciate it. I know that it was a big ask by your commissioner to appoint you all to this board, and I appreciate you being willing to take on the task. If you see me slide out, like I said, I'm taking the opportunity in a little bit to go tuck my daughter into bed. So thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your remarks. Commissioner Meyer, Gwen Meyer, welcome.
Welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, please come forward. We're delighted to hear from you. Thanks for
Good
being
evening.
here. Thanks for being here.
After hearing all the comments, what's wrong with the 7 we have now? I just throw that out there. Nothing wrong with the 7. You know, we have 4 districts and 3 county-wide. And when the average person who seeks a county position and win, they know what they're up against and how wide is that district. How wide is to run unincorporated, and you're serving the entire county. But my main concern is, and I'm glad we addressed the map because that was one of my concerns, that we had the opportunity to look at what the new would look like just in the draft material that was presented. But I'm here really to speak why an African American need to remain. Our county is diverse. I can remember back in the day, could have been in the 80s, when Mr. Willie Warren and his son Carl Warren fought so hard for the single member district. And it seems like it takes forever and a day for an African American to get elected at another seat on the Board of County Commission. But yet we're a diverse county, very diverse county. We talk about that, and now tonight we're talking about 9, adding 2 more. So when we add 2 more, I said, okay, countywide, 9 districts. Think about it, 9 districts. If the commissioner who is elected to represent their district get out in the community just like they do when they are trying to win the seat, you won't have a problem. Understand me, I have not left District 3 as a candidate. So it depends on the individual getting out there. I know just about everybody in my district. I hold town hall meetings. The commissioner has to, as an elected commissioner, we just have to do our job. There's nothing wrong with that. We can meet with everyone, but you got to find time in the afternoons, in the evenings to hold town hall meetings and take government to the people. There's nothing wrong with that. You want to be elected? I'm just speaking the truth. People call my office, we answer the call. We answer the call, and I give my staff 72 hours to respond. It's on the commissioner. And I'm not throwing any of my commissioners under the bus or parking the bus on top of them. I look at it as a responsibility of a commissioner. The same way I look at when I'm in a board meeting. I represent my district. And if you're not out there with the people, how are you going to represent them? And you're talking about adding 2 more, and we'll worry about what Tallahassee is going to say? I was up in Tallahassee this year, not on the agenda. We can't be threatened or feel like what Tallahassee is going to do is what we're going to do here, what's best for Hillsborough County. That's how I feel as a commissioner. I'll stop there, and y'all can ask me any questions.
Let's open it for questions. Do we have questions for Commissioner Meyer? Yes, Ms. Hall?
I am intrigued about what's wrong with the 7, because I'm wondering, what if we just had 7 single districts? And we split it by 7 single districts and got rid of the countywides, and then people would be represented and the numbers would be smaller. It may not be anticipatory of future growth the way 9 would be, but the single districts would then answer the question of why aren't the people being represented? Would you be satisfied with 7 single districts rather than 4 and 3?
I would be satisfied with 7 as long as the 7 willing to get out into the community. So you can have 7.
Right, but wouldn't, if they were single districts of 7 rather than 3 countywides, wouldn't they be more capable of getting out amongst the people because 3 of them would have their own county and they wouldn't feel like they had to cover the entire county? They have their own district, they wouldn't feel like they have to cover the entire county.
Correct. 7 is good, too.
Thank you.
We don't need to spend any taxpayer money trying to add more space or go out and buy more space to add 2 more. We feel comfortable where we are right now with 7. Yes.
Thank you. Recognize Ms. Latham.
Commissioner,
Hi there.
I want to ask you a real quick question. When we talk about doing single member, that means that as a whole, Hillsborough County gets to vote for 1 person. I personally don't like that. That's bothersome to me. But when you talk about the 7 that we have now and you question why would we keep it or not, what do you think about the 7 as we have it now, and what does it bring to you as a commissioner who goes out into the district? But also, what does it bring to you in your decision-making that helps you knowing that there are 4 people out there that are voting for that entire, or can get to 4 votes with that entire commission? Did I say that right? Did I confuse you?
Yes.
Okay, here's the point. I don't like only getting to vote for 1 person. I want to vote for 4. I want to feel like I can get to 4. That's, the 7-2 is a kind of a weird thing for me. I can probably swallow that. But then you get to vote for 3. But only voting for 1 person, and I'm really saying this to you, that to me isn't as fair a system, and it brings to mind people having little fiefdoms, and that concerns me. And you just said you could do 7.
I can do 7.
Even
Yeah.
individually,
Mhm.
not worrying about the
No,
fiefdoms.
no.
Okay.
I don't see where we need to add 2 more.
No, but I'm talking about 7
7
individual
districts.
individual
would-
districts.
And if that elected commissioner would get out into those communities, those communities will be well represented.
Okay, I follow you. But you
Yes.
can't mandate that.
No, but that's one of the reasons what we're talking about tonight, that is so large, and they cannot get to everyone, okay? So even if you make it smaller, and the individual don't have that desire to really serve the community, you're back at the same situation. The scenario doesn't change. Everyone is not going to be represented.
Before I recognize Ms. Droege, Dr. Collins, I see your hand symbol. Did you mean to inject something here?
Wanted to ask a question of Commissioner, my commissioner who appointed me. With the 7, even if it was 7, my greatest concern is to make sure that we can assure that there's a representative that represents the minority community. If it's 7 and we split it among everyone, what we've done is still kind of sort of modify the workload. And even if the workload is a little smaller for the folks that at the county have the, they're not in the individual single member districts, but they are countywide. If they divide those numbers, what do you feel about, and I think I just heard you say it when you say get out there and work the districts, and you know what you're going for before you run for it. So I'm with you there. But I have the same concern if we do the numbers, the representation. And because we happen to be in a county, well, thank God for the Warrens who pursued the single member district in Hillsborough County that impact all of our constitutional bodies. But my biggest concern is how do we make sure that there is a Gwen Myers who get out into the community, who work with the community, who make sure that you are finding out what our needs are and going back and trying to advocate for that when you sit up with all of the commissioners. Where I want to hear clearly where you're directing us with that one. If it is 7, do we make sure that we are open the door for the Hispanic or Latino community to have some representation, and that we're maintaining the African-American representation with the 7?
Thank you, Dr. Collins. I want to make it plain. We must keep a seat for an African American to be on the board of county commission. I'm going to fight extremely hard. Whatever information you're sending back to us, I want to make it clear. An African American must be on the board of county commissioners. I'm not looking to take us back, but I want to help us go forward. And going forward is that inclusion. Okay, we have been omitted for so long. We're at the table now, and I think I do an excellent job representing my district. And I want to make sure that a voice from District 3, an African-American person, remain on the Board of County Commission.
Thank you. I'm going to recognize Ms. Droege and then Ms. Snively. So, Ms. Droege?
Commissioner Myers, thank you for coming tonight. I don't have a question, I have a compliment. I want to applaud you on the amount of town halls that you conduct in your district on a regular basis. I see your announcements on social media and other places, and I really, really have to commend you for that because you set a fine example of representing your community.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Ms. Snively?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for coming and speaking, Commissioner. I understand your rationale going to 7 single-member districts. However, are you concerned potentially about the possibility of diluting the minority districts based on the current demographics of Hillsborough County? And if you look at the demographics, the size of the Hispanic population is almost 25% of the county's population, whereas the African-American population is about 15 to 18% of the county's population. So I would think that you'd be in favor of 9-member, single-member districts to potentially increase the odds of having both an African-American and Hispanic representation on the Board of County Commissions. If you just go from a 7-member board, switching it to single-member districts, you're actually decreasing the chances of having more diversity on the board. Help me understand that.
No, I don't think so. It just depends on how the maps are drawn.
But you draw the maps. I mean, you're part of the process. The Board of County Commissioner draws the maps.
That's why I'm going to make sure. I drew one in 2022, I think it was. Yeah, to making sure that the representation was there.
Okay.
Thank you. Other questions? Mr. White.
Commissioner Myers, thank you for coming.
Sure.
My commissioner had appointed me to this Charter Review Board. So, I gotta be very careful. Just say there are 10 votes for 9 commissioners. And, you know, I'm in a position where the votes are there to go to 9. And so sitting here, my goal would be, if I saw that there were 10 votes, to put it on the ballot to get the best possible 9 out to the voters. So I'm going to need some input on that. If the votes are here to go to ballot with 9 seats, I just can't sit back and not make sure we're protected in that vote, in that resolution that's going to the voters. So we're going to need a little bit more. We're going to need something. I'm going to need something.
I got to speak up. I got to fight very hard that the African-American person be represented on the Board of County Commission.
Okay.
When the maps are drawn, I got to make sure that that happens.
All right.
Yeah. Sometimes it's all about working across the aisle.
Okay. So if there, I'm just speaking, Mr. Chairman, if the 10 votes were there, so and you always been for an African-American to be, I could not vote for anything where an African-American couldn't come out of a resolution, continue to have a seat on the board. But it would be a great win for the citizens of Hillsborough County to have an opportunity to have a Hispanic citizen elected to the board as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just want to, I'm not saying nothing other than if the votes were there to put that 9-member board on the ballot, that's what I'll be continuing to fight for. I just want to let you know that.
Nothing wrong with that.
Okay.
You all going to make the decision, or we're going to make our decision when it comes to us in the BOCC room, in our chamber.
Very good.
It's fair enough? Fair game?
That is fair.
Okay.
I love your straight talk. Any other questions for, any other questions? Yeah, Ms.
Yeah, I
Hall?
just have a point of order. Since Ms. Latham directly spoke to me, I'm just going to simply respond that I will have an answer to your question because I prepared a response about the difference between single districts and multiple representative districts. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
I got to
Mr. White?
I got to ask this. So why won't the commissioners take a position? We've had individual county commissioners, and after a while, it's going to be all 7 board members that come before the Charter Review Board. Why don't the county commissioners of Hillsborough County make a recommendation to some sort of vote of what the board as a group today would desire this Charter Review Board take to the ballot?
That's a tough question. I know it came up about 2 years ago, and that particular commissioner had just joined the board, and it's like you just got here, now you're bringing up 9 members, so it was just voted down in a heartbeat by the board. It did.
I've asked the other commissioners to consider that, and you're talking about a great help and a boost for the public if the commissioners themselves, other individual commissioners, voicing their opinion, which is a good thing. It'd be great for the board itself to vote out something and say, hey, Charter Review Board, this is the resolution. We will formally request the Charter Review Board of 2025 to consider. Please consider that.
Well, you know, let's tell the truth. When we have another board in place, we don't have to do the hard work. We can send it to you all and make it very easy for us.
That's why I'm pushing back. That's why I'm pushing back a little bit.
Just trying to keep it real for us, that's
If
all.
individual commissioners can come here and look like we're going to end up with all 7, why can't the board as a whole send this board something?
That's a good point.
Well, I think the good thing about this process that we do every 5 years is that we're independent from the board. We have the authority to do this. We're not looking for the board to tell us what to do, why to do it, how to do it. We're grateful that they stand up here and they give us their perspective. It is very valuable. But this is created to give us the authority to do this. So if individual commissioners want to come in and provide their input, great. They are not mandated to do that. They don't have to do it. This is solely separate, which is why it is, you know, we come in here every 5 years, whoever's appointed, to do it, independent of the board. Yes, they can come in just like they're doing right now and give us the meat and potatoes behind how things are done, you know, but they're not mandated to do it. They don't have to do it. It is their discretion and discernment. And
I've asked the board to consider that. That's what I'm asking. And the reason I did that, Mr. Chairman, is that if the legislative delegation, our Hillsborough County legislative delegation, had to fight for what the commissioners were going to look like in Tallahassee, I guarantee you the commissioners of Hillsborough County will be sending something up there by way of a vote on what they would want. And so that's all I'm asking.
Let me see, are there any other questions or comments to make for Commissioner Myers? Thank you. Well, okay, Mr. Shaw?
Thank you, Commissioner Myers, for coming here. Appreciate it. Sure. I agree with you. I think it breaks down to the voters' responsibility to elect 7 or 9 good people. Whatever we talked about here doesn't really hold water. It's the voters' responsibility whom they're going to elect, whether it's 7 or 9. Having said that, I would like to see expansion because Hillsborough County is growing every year. And the way I see it, if you expand it to 9 members, it'll be one part of 170,000 representation versus right now 1 over 360,000 representation. So I think the onus is on the voters to elect good people, and if you have a smaller districts, the response time will be a lot better from the commissioners or their legislative aid. Having said that, I think it'll make it a lot easier if we go and, expand the current composition. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Just wanna say-
Any other questions? Thank you very much, Commissioner Meyer.
Thank you all so much for having me, and I certainly
Great.
appreciate all that you all are doing to bring whatever issues that are going to go to the voters, and the voters will decide what they will want, whether it remains 7 or will go to 9. Thank you all so much. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, ma'am. Commissioner Josh Wastel. This proved a lot harder than we thought, didn't it? But I'm sure you're up
Might
for the
get worse.
challenge. Welcome, sir.
I did want to give deference to Commissioner Smith, if you would like to bring her forth first, if she's... Okay. She has deferred to me, so one second.
Oh, wait a second. Who is it?
I broke it on my way up here. The deputy helped me fix it. Okay. Everybody kind of see that? See the colors? You don't have to see it in huge detail, but I want you to see that map. And the first thing I want to say is that I am not going to comment or expand on any questions related to trying to convince you to go one way or the other. That is not why I'm here tonight. I want to bring you some facts, some objective opinion of actually having to live with it as a countywide commissioner. Some of the comments that I heard tonight were kind of confusing. I want to answer some of the questions. Some really good ones came up. Mr. White, Mr. Taylor, you had a good one. And school board member Snively, former school board member Melissa Snively, I want to expand on some of their questions. But I just want to talk about some facts. I think some arguments that have not been made when it relates to expansion of the numbers. So let's just talk about the map first and why I believe that countywide commissioners lead to problems, specifically in the District 4 area, which when I was elected, I asked the question, what is the backlog on sidewalk trip and fall claims? And that answer was 16 years old. That somebody fell, injured themselves, reported it, we had still not repaired that sidewalk. The majority of those damages occur and repairs, especially when it comes to roads and sidewalks, is in the District 4 area. It is so expansive and it has got the least amount of attention. Well, if you look at that map, which great job by county staff as usual. So I'm just going to point at the TV that's right in front of me, this map. I want to focus on the purple lines. Those are the district lines. We know that District 4 is by far the biggest in the east, District 2 on the top, 1 on the west, 3 kind of right there centrally located. If you look at that map, there is 4 jurisdictions in Hillsborough County. There are the 3 municipalities, Plant City, Temple Terrace, and City of Tampa, in no particular order of favoritism, and then the unincorporated area. The unincorporated area represents 70% of Hillsborough County's population, the supermajority, but they consistently get the least amount of representation. In this map that sits on my wall in front of my desk, but it's like 8 feet wide, clearly demonstrates the one area that consistently gets representation from 6 county commissioners, while every other jurisdiction only gets representation from 4. And that is the city of Tampa, and that's why you continue to see year after year a hypercentric focus on funding into the downtown core city of Tampa area. So that's just the visual that I want to paint about why I believe that it will give better voter representation if you do away with the county-wides. All of this, you have to show up, whatever. We all 7 county commissioners work extremely hard. It's very difficult to get out. For those watching, 1.6 million people. I govern over more people than 11 governors of their entire states, and I still managed to find time to make it down, my friend, at Fort Lonesome Ranch, which is all the way down at the Mosaic Mine, which is still Hillsborough County, and a lot of people don't even know that. So I'm not really particularly fond to hear comments of, you have to get out. All of the commissioners work very hard. Commissioner Hagan was just joking the other meeting about how many signs Commissioner Myers and myself put out for all of the town halls. And we also do community hours out at the libraries. Somebody made a great point. We don't need remote offices. We'll do those community hours out at libraries. We'll bring in people one-on-one. Sometimes the deputies have to escort them out. Who knows what happens? Sometimes it gets really fun. We invite you out to those. So now I want to move on to the revenue. Now that we have the visual of the map out of the way, I'll move that so it's not distracting. We consistently heard that 2 more commissioners, oh, sorry, Beth. We consistently hear that adding 2 more commissioners is growing government. I don't know, and please, there's many of you that personally know me, so feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. I have never met an elected official that is more fiscally conservative than me. Not one. Not Governor DeSantis, nobody. I am probably the most fiscally conservative elected official I've ever met. This is a problem, though. There's one thing that I will agree that people demand when you're in here is that they want you to be able to respond timely to their emails and their phone calls, no matter what political party they are, even if they say they're libertarian and don't believe in government. That's right until they want a pothole fixed or something, and all of a sudden they're not libertarian. So it is becoming an issue to where you're either going to need to start adding aides. We should probably be at 3, and then you would need to add us to 4. So now we're talking about, as we grow, we're talking about adding 14 bodies because there's 7 commissioners, or 6 bodies. With 2 more offices, you would only have 2 more commissioners and 2 more aides in each office. These aides' total financial impact is over $100,000 apiece. It's no small number. So when we start talking about the need to start adding on more bodies in our office, maybe not all of them need to be paid that much. That not once has been mentioned in these revenue documents. Now I'm going to say one thing. I love staff, but staff has a motivation to not have more county commissioners because that's 2 more headaches that they have to deal with in county center. So they won't provide you with anything that would motivate you to consider this. The very first day that this was brought up, it was one of the senior-most legal staff that said, well, there is the issue of getting the vote for the majority, which is going to be my next point. That is one of the biggest lies that I have heard said repeated from the Jan Platt days when they came in here and attacked Danny Alvarez when he was sitting on this same exact board when he was trying for it. There is absolutely 0 deference from staff to the countywide commissioners, even though we have literally a line item called countywide revenue. No deference given to countywide commissioners over that revenue and how we should see it spent for the benefit of the citizens. There is always a deference to the, well, it's that commissioner's district. Never once is it, well, it's all my district. Thank you very much. I know I travel it all the time. That is never once said to me in the past almost 3 years. That is not how County Center operates. They only operate off of the single member district's deference. Commissioner Miller is thankfully still here, and we talked about apportionment of the funding. Well, actually, staff already does a really good job of that, despite the needs of the District 4 voters, which are nowhere near me, by the way. I live in the northwest part of the county. They have sheets, and there's an even distribution of money that goes out to the multi-decade backlog of not once in at least the 18 years at a minimum has even the annual road maintenance and repaving function of the CIP been funded. Not 50% even once in the last 18 years. So, and despite the majority of those needs going towards the District 4 area, that is not how it's looked at. It is not done in chronological order. It is done by an equal apportionment across the single-member commissioners. That is how every budget cycle goes, and that is how every behind-the-door scenes briefing that we get from staff is conducted. It is never once deference to the county-wides. I want to say one thing. Mr. White, you know me, I'm a very straight shooter. I've always been very clear. I never engage I know that it's there's a difference between me not engaging and me not empathizing with your needs of you wanting a black commissioner. I never personally engage in race-based politics. When I make a decision, it's off of, hey, who's got the greatest need and what are the amount of resources I can get to that issue. But I do understand the history and that it's a problem. But I'm telling you right now very clearly that when that seat was gerrymandered, they did not pick Commissioner Meyer's map. There was a new precedence that was set in 2022. There was an extreme effort to gerrymander the maps against the District 2 seat, and they won. They picked the one that they thought was going to work. It didn't work out for them after all. But when that happened, it for the first time disenfranchised the black community. You know Yvette Lewis was up there basically threatening the board. I've never seen anything like it since. And right now, that board is in serious 100% jeopardy of going to a different minority group. You can figure out which one it is. That is the way that new map was written. And that is a reality. If that's your goal, that seat right now is in real jeopardy of that. So I just want you to keep that in mind. I believe that the most important thing that has been said during all of these meetings was that the county commissioners could do this. This is your meeting. That's why I didn't want to come. I don't want to be here to convince you. If we were going to do it or wanted to do it, and hey, we might now, we've got a new board makeup. We could bring that item. It was mentioned before by the former District 4 commissioner. It was shot down. We were only 4-3. But hey, maybe we're 5-2 now, and maybe we do it. But that is not what's happened. This is your board's time to decide what you think are the priorities. If I was in here, I would have absolutely voted to get rid of the county internal auditor. That thing has been amended so many times, they are not even allowed to audit the county's budget. Did you know that? It is not, they are no longer allowed. They were originally written into our county charter to be basically the budget auditor. And that was written out and amended over the years, and their power is completely diluted. The person in charge of it is an extremely brilliant woman. It has nothing to do with her credentials, but she has been completely cut off of all power. I think the office is like, what, $1.2 million a year, I think, in the budget. Not a lot, but hey, we're pinching pennies here. That could fund a lot of roads every year being repaved that haven't. Essentially a quality assurance office. That's what the county internal auditor's office is now, unfortunately. So those are the things that if I was here every meeting to try and convince you to vote on things, but I don't, these are my opinions. These are the realities that I deal with. I believe that if you're going to leave county-wides, then yeah, just, I should have started with this. There are 2 people out of the almost 1.6 million county that you should not ask if you should go to 9 single-member districts. That is me and Commissioner Cepeda. We are the 2 people in the county that have directly the most risk and the most to lose, and I'm still okay with it because it's about voter representation. Right now, countywide is such a bear, it always just consistently now goes with the down ballot politics. And that's not what your local elected officials are supposed to be about. Look at the pendulum swinging. 2018, they took over 2, the Dems took over 2, and then they took over the 3rd one, and then the next 2 years, the Republicans took over the 2, and then this year we took over the 3rd one, and then who knows if the cycle just keeps going in that circle, because that's what has been happening. That is political parties playing power games of, well, we can just rely on that down ballot on these and have much more of a sure thing. And I don't support that. I support that if your local elected official, if you're having to beg them to get your pothole fixed and your sidewalk repaired for 16 years backlog, then you should be able to reasonably go door knock them out of office for doing a bad job. And it's impossible right now in the countywide stretch. I believe that that's a fair and reasonable approach to it. And as far as the whole, well, you represent everywhere, Commissioner Miller, if you were in District 1 and there was a baby drowning, are you going to save the baby's life? Or are you going to walk by it because it's not in District 4? Exactly. And we do that every day. Myself and Commissioner Cohen sit on Tampa Bay Water. We represent 3 counties. We represent 3 counties sitting on that. We never think about, hey, sorry, we're not going to support your water project. You get to die of dehydration, but we'll keep it all for Hillsborough County, which is why Tampa Bay Water was created, right? Because water wars. We don't do that. We don't do that when we sit on the TPO and together as single members and county-wides. We look at the county-wide planning and perspectives of regional growth. We don't do it when we sit on the Aviation Authority. We don't do it when we sit on she's a single-member district commissioner that sits on the Port Authority that represents not only Hillsborough County, but supplies 40% of the region's fuel. I mean, that's a critical state asset that we manage. We don't think, well, how can I do this at the port to make sure that my district gets more fuel than everybody else? That's not how we vote. That's silly talk. We're adults. We have very serious jobs, and we make very serious decisions that impact people's lives. And even if we have disagreements on our board over things, we don't get into the petty ins and outs of, well, this is my fiefdom, so I'm not going to help you in your fiefdom. We say, okay, how can we figure this out? So I could keep going on and rant and raving, and you could give me the hook, but I would just, if you have questions, I won't be here to try and convince you, okay? So.
Let me recognize Mr. White.
Well, it's just a simple question. What do you want? Do you want the 9 or don't you want the 9?
If the Board of County Commissioners brought back this item, I would advocate for 9 single-member districts. If it came back with any of the county-wides, I would say just keep what you have now and just give us more aides.
What about Vice Chair Julian Holt's position? What were you saying? You were in favor for?
I'm in favor of voting for the majority of the commissioners as opposed to just one.
So that would be what, 5-4?
Then you're just getting 4 more county-wide.
Add one additional.
Yeah, I definitely don't.
So you'll go to 5 single-member districts and 4.
Which would fix none of the
6.
issues because of the population already. Realistically, I mean, so right now, I represent twice as many people as a congressman or woman, just to give you an idea, but we get 2 legislative aides. They get $100 million a year of staffing. Those offices are expensive to run. The same great point that Commissioner Miller brought up about when the mention of the constitutionals. Well, the constitutionals have very large budgets with massive staffs to go and do their individual outreach. We just get 2 legislative aides to do it with. And we're actually a very fiscally conservative, how much we spend a year. Our budget is their own line item on the county commission, and you'll see that it's really low in comparison to our annual operating revenue, and that 2 more seats would be another drop in the bucket, but the intrinsic value given to the voters is unmeasurable compared to you saying, well, you know, another office will cost you another, you know, $500,000 a year. Don't do it. And we have to reconfigure one time. It's like if I started going into the history of the fraud, waste, and abuse that I've just uncovered in the county over the past 2 decades only that I've looked at, you know, us asking to restructure the second floor for the first time in 40 years, I think is pretty reasonable, even for the most unagreeable person.
All right. So that's what I'm looking for. So the commissioners that has come before this board has pushed for 9. How the 9 turn out, I don't know in the end. And then we have one commissioner say, if there is 9,
look,
push out the best possible product.
And let me give you this on the 9. If you went to 7, it would still, because the black community has actually, if you've looked at the movement patterns, it's separated more and more and more. So if even with a 7 single member, you still have a pretty big map, it would still be pretty tight for you to get a solid seat. I'm not telling you it's what I want. I just know that that's what you're after and the facts that I've looked at. If you had 9 single members, much smaller maps, it'd be much easier for you to protect what you reasonably want, which is your own representation on the board.
Okay.
I know that that's your goal. I'm just giving you what I think will get you to your goal. I have no ulterior motives, frankly. This would make me, I have to win this upcoming cycle, it would immediately make me, instead of me having my relaxed second term of term limits of 4 years guaranteed, it would immediately, if I wanted to stay even after this cycle, I would have to immediately run again if this passed the voters. So I just want to be clear, I have no incentive to do this, zero.
Mr. Chairman, I'm just fascinated because this is my, fourth charter review board, something like that? Fifth, something. Anyway, but I've never had commissioners call for 9 seats. I've been calling for 9 seats for years. And all of a sudden, we got elected officials, countywide and district commissioners calling for 9 seats. And so I want the public to really understand this and hear this and let them know, hey, I think it is coming.
Well, okay, I got a few questions on the remote. Dr. Collins, I'll recognize you now. Would you speak up, please? Dr. Collins?
Okay, thank you. Sorry about the double-handed hit. I just wanted to ask the commissioner one question. You made a statement earlier that if it looked like it was going one way, that you may not get one of the things that we want. And I'm as a charter review member, board member, my interest is twofold. How do we give more credence to the residents? How do we, the difference that we need to do is to make sure that they are getting the service they need, which you mentioned earlier. And in doing so, if that expansion happened to occur, whatever the numbers are and however it's broken up, I heard what you said clearly, and I heard what you said at the end just now about the 9 potentially giving us what we want. What I do not want to do is go backwards, and that is I want to make sure that we maintain an African-American seat, and I see no reason why in doing so we shouldn't be able to pursue aggressively 2 seats and 1 for the other large minority group that's actually growing. And I've never been a person who agreed with what everybody was saying with the numbers. For the last 30 years, I've debated it. If you get it right and do the census right, then you might actually know what the numbers are. But the bottom line is that's what I'm looking for. And when you say at 9, or if the words came out, maybe not your mouth, for 5-4, it seems to me that you're saying the way to be assured that we will have an African-American seat is to expand the numbers. And I can hear what you're saying, because I think I heard either here and somewhere else about the large percentage of African-Americans who've actually, with all of the modification in public housing, have been sent out to the county. However, that may not last, because with whatever is happening at the congressional level, and if they start pulling back Section 8 and things like that, then those individuals that are out there, they may be coming right back into the city. Where are you with that? Make it, as they say, make it plain. I appreciate you saying you're clear and you're to the point, but can you make it plain to me on how do we make sure that expanding or not expanding, that we maintain
Well, if you,
those the African-American seat and the potential for adding a Hispanic seat?
If you have 9 single-member districts, you're going to have significantly smaller maps to give you more control over an area where your objective, again, I'm not here to advocate for, but I know that is what you want, might be accomplished, because you don't have big sprawling maps to where it makes it almost impossible to guarantee your outcome. If you have a smaller map, you'd be able to centrically focus on that population demographic that you want to maintain population over, which is how they draw the maps. Like was pointed out before, there's mandates that require that you don't disenfranchise that community, and that would make it much more of a sure thing. Smaller maps in terms of making sure that people have better, get the resources, I guess, that you're saying, that will create a significantly more amount of accountability of your elected officials if they have a much smaller service area to look over and a much lower population. Because you are much more accountable to the fact that you know on election day that there is a real chance that if they're motivated enough, they could door knock you out of office. And for county-wides, it's just an unreasonable, unsurmountable feat right now. Because we're in such a large area, we're not getting, our campaigns don't get funded like a state governor would to be able to mount a campaign to effectively cover a geographic area that's larger than 7 states, right, which we are. That's not what happens in local elected officials. That's just elections. That's just a reality. That's just a reality that we're left with. I mean, look, Miami-Dade County moved, I think, in the year 2000 to 13 elected county commissioners. I think that that's way too many. At most, I think you should consider doing 9 single members with some type of population kicker to 11, and that's a stretch even in my own mind because you don't want too many chefs in the kitchen, because that is when you really start having difficulties reaching points of agreement. And then you might actually end up with the problems that were mentioned earlier, which is where you get too many people fighting over a small bucket of money. 11 might be even a stretch, but 9 at a minimum with some type of population kicker that brings you to 11, and then the 11 is capped from there on out, and you just start growing aides as needed, which would be left up to staff. I think that that's probably the most fiscally conservative and reasonable approach to bring accountability to the elected officials, to make sure that you're getting resources on the things that you want and not on the things that they want. And it would also, I think it would just improve the overall well-being of the county. I mean, again, the fact that we haven't even 50% funded just the road maintenance and repaving in 18 years. I stopped looking after 18 years because the information became so analog, it was difficult to ascertain. So I just stopped there. And then the sidewalk list was much easier at 16 years because we have lawsuits. Every John Morgan billboard and every video of him rolling a joint in his Maybach was paid for by the taxpayers of Hillsborough County from trip and fall claims. He's the biggest producer of those trip and fall claims on our sidewalks. So, you know, that's a problem that it's become cyclical now because the money that was supposed to pay for the sidewalks is your general fund property taxes, and the only money that we have to pay the trip and fall attorneys is your general fund property taxes. So instead of us using the money to repair the sidewalk, we're now cyclically just paying it off to trip and fall claims. So, you know, if you bring down the number, it's in my opinion that you'll get way better voter representation. That's my humble opinion.
Mrs. Snively, do you have I see a hand up. Did you want to say something?
I scared her off.
I can see her.
Sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now. Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, sorry, I thought I hit the unmute button. I think, first, thank you, Commissioner Wassel. I think you answered my original question I had, was really your opinion based on demographics, if you thought the chances for a more diverse board are increased, and I think you definitely explained your thoughts and your opinion on that, so I appreciate that. So at this point, I just want to thank you for your comments. Thank you for the map, which exemplified and amplified the current situation with representation in the county. Thanks for recognizing the intrinsic value that this could bring to voters if we expanded to 9 single-member districts. And I really believe that us as a board should certainly recognize the important perspective coming from a countywide commissioner. I think that's really important for us to notate and emphasize as we are having this discussion. You're living it, you are in it, you are living it day by day. And who better to give us your opinion about this particular topic than someone who is in the moment of this. So really just, you've answered my question previously, so thank you for coming and sharing your thoughts and opinions with us this evening. Greatly appreciated. And thank you for your fiscal conservatism.
My pleasure.
Okay, recognize Ms. Holt.
Okay.
Hi.
Hi. I'm trying to figure out, based on a couple of things you said, although you only have 2 legislative aides, do you not have county support also that assist you in like community outreach and things of that sort in some fashion, or does it really just only lay in the 3 of your hands?
When we do an official, hey, let's do a community meeting, at that point, staff will go and engage in setting up the resources there and posting the signs. That's it. They don't, our outreach for many of my meetings are, my staff calls HOAs and CDDs, and I go to HOA and CDD board meetings. That's it. The aides are doing that. Staff helps us on crafting items, legal analysis on things that we want to bring up, the typical things like that. But we, like, the community outreach that they do is for staff's services. They go out and engage for them to come back and say, hey, here's aging services or whatever you need.
Well, and I know you do a lot of your own analysis and information gathering, so putting you aside from, I'm just trying to understand how this works, because my understanding was that the county administrator's office really provides a lot of the answers to questions that are substantive in nature. And what I mean by that is whether it be the maps, whether it be demographics, whether it be an analysis of the budget, whether it be perhaps why we're so far behind in the expenditure of money in certain areas. That would be what your staff, county administrator staff would do, not your aides, correct?
Yeah, they analyze their own budget. The county administrator is under state law. Well, we could name the director of budgets other than her, but in our county, she is the budget officer. We could, under state law, name one other person, but there is a separation of powers that exists there, and for good reason. Okay. Same thing as hiring and firing and staff, yeah. Okay.
When you indicated in your comments that D4, District 4, has been the biggest, basically the biggest district that has received the least amount. What do you attribute that to? And other than growth, obviously.
Well, I attribute it to the fact that, again, so when myself and Commissioner Cepeda took over the majority in 2022, you had, let's see, 1, 3, 6, 1, 3, 6, and 7. Yeah, you had the majority of the board that lived in the city of Tampa. That's why. It's pretty easy to, because the map clearly delineates the fact that that's the one consistent of the 4 jurisdictions. Hi, Sue. How are you? Good. Sorry, my focus has been downrange. That's why you can see clearly that, again, out of the 4 jurisdictions, they're consistently the only one that gets 6, and everybody else, well, because of the current gerrymandered map that the former board put against the D2 office, there's a small sliver of Temple Terrace, little tiny sliver that now technically gets 1 more there. But yeah, the basis is that that's why. That's why the unincorporated Hillsborough consistently has got the least amount of love.
In terms of going to totally single-member districts, what would you say to someone such as myself that feels strongly that for the entire time that I've been able to vote for the majority of the people on the commission? And obviously also as an elected official, I needed to go ensure that I was going to have 4 votes if I were asking for special funding for a project. Problem-solving courts, for instance, is an example. And how you would have to go to those 4 as opposed to, what do you think happens? Is this diluted if you go to all single-member districts?
Well, no, because that's not how any lobbyist works right now anyways. They lobby every single one of us. I mean, we've got 2 lobbyists at the table tonight. I mean, they would be more educated to answer that than myself. I mean, that's just, they go to the single members and the county-wides. They're not like, well, I got to get those 3 county-wides or I'm not going to get my 1 single member. That's never the conversation. That's almost never the outcome either. So I don't see how it could reasonably dilute anything. I mean, same thing with every board, and I answered all of this earlier. That's not how things are done. It's just not the reality that exists. And as far as, since that you've been, had this the whole time that you've been here, well, the Hillsborough County Charter was written in 1980.
I believe 83.
Oh, right, 83, and then went into effect in 84 when I was 0 years old. So it's probably time that we give it a once-over at this point and give the next generation the ability to state their opinion on what their voter representation might be.
And do you in any way see going to single-member districts in any way diluting really the influence that the commissioner will have in comparison to perhaps the more influence that the county administrator would have, no matter who it is?
Well, the county administrator, I want to be very clear about this. The county administrator, and I'm not saying the county administrator we have right now, I'm saying the role, is the most dangerously powerful person in Hillsborough County because of the Sunshine Law. They are the single only person that has unfettered access to two things. That's all 7 county commissioners when she wants, and the agenda, which means that that person is the only person that can effectively, unless the person's violating Sunshine Law and talking to commissioners outside of Sunshine, that would make that person the only one that can legally shuttle politic items through the board. That's going to happen whether you're county-wides or singles until they undo the Sunshine Law. And again, I'm not talking about our county administrator. I think that she is a very kind person. I'm saying that that is just a reality of the role that the average person might not think of. And I would say this to you, Ms. Holt. I campaigned countywide as a county commissioner, and the number one, and I would argue that no one outworked me on that campaign trail. I was everywhere that I could possibly be. And the number one question that I consistently got was, oh, what's a county commissioner do? And I could go out onto the street right now and do that same thing. You guys are politically engaged, so that seems like a misnomer to you. But the average person, I think the voter turnout tonight was like 11% in the special race that's going on right now. People are at record lows engagement in politics, I think for a couple of reasons. Mostly because it's become so toxic, who would want to just keep that negative energy in their life all day? And then second is because they're so busy. And you can't help that. The county spent $1.1 million on the 2022 tax that was ruled illegal by Judge Moe. They spent $1.1 million to not market it. They paid for a creative playbook because it's illegal for them to market something, so they undermined that through an engineering firm. $1.1 million were used to promote that tax. Less than 1% engagement for that tax. And that's just we're not even debating anything now other than the harsh reality of what voter participation is right now. I mean, it is where it is in terms of engagement. So I don't think it'd be watered down whatsoever because it's the same thing. And again, there's no deference to the countywide commissioners. Not once. If there is, why don't we have unfettered control of the countywide budget that is double of the unincorporated budget? Why don't we have the say over the $1 billion of annual property taxes levied countywide? We don't. It's never once said, mentioned once, nothing. No staff member thinks like that. It's always to the single members.
Okay, Ms. Holt,
No,
then
that's
we'll
fine. No, go ahead.
finish with Mr. White.
No, that's
You think the non-single member district is the first step? And the reason I ask that, so you go to non-single member district, you just mentioned the power of the county administrator. You think the next possible move by the public is an elected county chairman or an elected county mayor?
Oh, no way. That's even more power. You don't want that. You want that person very, very accountable just to your elected officials, and that way they have an easy way to end that contract. I think that that's a tool that you don't want to let go of. And then that is now another layer of bureaucracy. So that's a whole different conversation. You trying to catch me, Mr. White. That's what you're trying to do.
Mr. White's very good at that.
Well, look, I appreciate you guys. I've watched many of these meetings, kind of brutal a lot of times. I feel bad for you guys. I already told my 2 appointees that I apologize to them, and I would not dare do it to them again. So I really appreciate the sacrifice. County Center is one of the more inconvenient places to get to for many of us. I know myself. I know Commissioner Smith is probably the only other person that has to drive as far as me. Actually, no, yeah, you got me as well. But I really appreciate the sacrifice, and you're right. We could bring this ourselves, and there's probably a question that needs to be had about why haven't we? But my answer to you would be that this is actually the much more appropriate board to handle that issue, because this is your citizens' charter review board for you to decide what type of representation that you would like. Either way you get to at the ballot, which would be effectively the same as us doing it, but this is at least a group of your peers that are doing it. Do you understand what I'm saying? Right? So either way, again, only myself and one other person in the whole county have the most to lose at this change. But I still believe that if you're going to do any county-wides, just leave it the same, which has been advocated for. If you're going to go to single members, 7, it's too late. 7 should have probably been a decade ago. Go ahead and do 9. It'll stabilize things and give you some room for the growth that's coming in East Hillsborough, which we don't even get to control now because of all the state laws that exist to supersede us. So. Which if you watched the land use meeting this morning, you would have heard me rant about. All right, guys? I really appreciate all of y'all's sacrifice, okay?
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Well,
I'm taking my map.
I thought you were going to do a Karl Rove on us, and start writing something. Yeah. Need a whiteboard. Thank you very much, Commissioner. And we have one other speaker, former County Commissioner Mary Ellen Smith. Hi, welcome. So glad you're here.
Thank you, and I know that this meeting is getting really long, and I'll be as brief as I can, but first, of course, I want to thank you for your service here. This is very important, and it is very important that a group of citizens look at our charter and review our charter and decide, is now the time for changes or not? And whatever you bring to the voters will have come. It's important that we have a chance for it to come not from our elected officials who have a different perspective on some of these things you all are grappling with. I am Mariella Smith. I'm a former county commissioner. I served in a countywide seat. I feel moved to mention that I am Hispanic. My family is Cuban, and so we have elected Hispanic people countywide to various of the constitutionals, Bob Enriquez, Ms. Holt, as well as myself on the county commission. As a commissioner, I worked on the most recent redistricting of the county, and I want to share some of the things that I learned in that very difficult process of drawing the districts that are fair and non-discriminatory. When we drew the new maps, we were very careful not to commit retrogression by diminishing the voting power of the Black community. So we maintained the ratio of Black voters at 39%. It was the same or a little bit higher than what it had been in that district, District 3 designated as the minority-majority district. But if you change from 4 single-member districts to 7 single-member districts, you may not even be able to get 1 majority Black district at that same ratio. I don't know that. Maybe you could, maybe you couldn't. There are no guarantees, as has been said tonight. You may not even be able to get 1. And whether you go to 7 single-member districts or 9 single-member districts, it may well be practically impossible to get 2 majority Black districts. So currently we have 1 majority Black district in 7 seats. But if we end up with 1 majority Black district in 9 seats, that will have reduced the black voting power from electing 1 in 7 commissioners to electing 1 in 9. And that will have reduced that voice on the board, diluted that voice on the board. So as you consider a larger number of districts, I would ask you to look beyond this hypothetical theories and get down to the nitty-gritty beyond the hypothetical and get actual demographic data. Look at some real maps that could realistically be drawn if you're going to propose something different than what we have. What we have works. But if you're going to propose something different, given all the rules that there are about compactness and contiguity, it's not as easy as you might think to just draw the maps. The populations have moved. I don't know that you can get one in a larger number of districts, and I think it would be practically impossible to get 2. So I would say it's not your job to draw the maps, but it is your job to know that whatever you propose is at least possible to maintain the same representation that we've worked so hard to gain in Hillsborough County, and get legal advice about the ramifications about putting forward a referendum that might be practically impossible to do anything other than the unintended consequences, of course, of reducing the black voting power. So I have just one other thing to discuss. I've been a county commissioner, and more importantly, prior to that, I was a very active citizen, engaged in county issues, engaged with the county commission for decades before I became a commissioner. So I've looked at the commission from both sides now. And I want to talk about the relationship of commissioners to citizens of districts of various sizes. Speaking as a citizen of South County, we had over the years great relationships with many of our county commissioners, both the district ones and the countywides, some of the countywides. I can recall many times that each of those commissioners came down to meet with us in our homes, in the library branches that are down there, in the restaurants that are down there, and Commissioner Merman would hold regular town hall office hours in the McDonald's on Highway 41 in Apollo Beach. Then, while I was a countywide commissioner, because I had come from this, my office was very responsive to constituents. And whether you needed a new garbage can or you needed your water meter looked at, whatever, we didn't send you to your district commissioner. We directed staff to get with you to solve your problem, and we followed up with you. If you called or emailed my office about an issue, I listened and I discussed that issue with you, and I met with individuals and groups all over this county, from Baum and Waimama to Ybor and East Tampa and to Keystone and Temple Terrace. And many of my fellow commissioners did the same, maybe none as much as Commissioner Myers, who is really sets a high bar for community engagement. But I know the county-wides, while I was a commissioner, also were in there all over the county, and as you just heard Commissioner Wastel saying, he is often meeting with groups as well. So the point is, and I know it's been made before tonight, but I want to, I came here to make this point, that some commissioners are responsive and some are not. Some meet with citizens regularly, and some commissioners don't return phone calls or emails, even from community leaders. And that applies to the district commissioners as well as the county-wides. So in my experience, whether a county commissioner represents 400,000 or 200,000 people it will make no difference in the responsiveness of that office to the citizens. What matters is the person in that office and the people that they have on their staff. As a citizen, I engaged a lot with the staff of the commissioners as well, and that's very important. But it's, I kind of wonder what's wrong with what we have, as Commissioner Myers said. I think that I am not seeing a whole lot of citizens here clamoring for more commissioners any more than I see a bunch of citizens asking for more Congress people in Washington. Nobody thinks that would do better, be more efficient, get more done, and nobody wants to pay for it. So, in closing, I do want to say that as a citizen, it has always been very important to me to be able to vote for a majority of the county commissioners, to be able to vote for 4 of the 7. If I could only vote for 1 out of 9, my voting power is diminished. I want to be able to vote for 4. My district, sometimes we've had a district commissioner that I didn't relate to as much as the countywide. That countywide is my commissioner as well. And having been a countywide commissioner, I can tell you that you are accountable. I did feel accountable to the Balm Civic Association, the Keystone Civic Association, the different groups that I met with all over, because they had a vote on my reelection. So I knew I was accountable to them. My opinion, I may be the only one to give you an opinion tonight. My opinion is that changing from our current system where each citizen gets to vote on 4 of the 7 commissioners to another system with more single-member districts would be bigger government, but not better government. And that's the way I see it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I recognize Mr. White.
Well, it's been said tonight, the African-American seat, Commissioner Myers hold, is extremely important to the community. The former county commission board did not vote for the map that Commissioner Myers put forward. And my personal opinion, I believe that's why those Democratic commissioners lost their seat, because the African-American citizens lost their confidence in those commissioners that did not stand with the commissioner that they had put in office. And as a consequence, they were removed from office, I believe, by the African-American vote. What do you say about the redistricting process and getting educated and all this stuff when black folks have lost confidence in that process because they didn't go with the map that the commissioner put forward, the black commissioner put forward?
We went with the map that that maintained 39% black majority in the District 3 district. We went with the map that was approved, and in fact, it was recommended by a couple of black organizations, the Black Democratic Caucus, I believe, as well as the League of Women Voters, found it to be the most fair and equitable drawing of the lines. It did actually make it possible for a black candidate to run in District 2, which had not been possible before, aside from District 3. So I stand by that map. Mm-hmm.
Are there other questions? Ms. Holt?
Thank you for coming tonight, first of all. As a county commissioner, what do you see as the three primary duties that the Board of County Commission itself is responsible for?
Well, certainly the budget and spending the budget. And our budget is our values and our priorities. So when you elect your commissioners, you want them to be funding the same sorts of organizations, whether that is arts and nonprofits, helps and affordable housing, or and roads and sidewalks, and what's the priorities of that. After that, there is the county commission is responsible for the redistricting. That was one of the most important things we worked on. And the other business of the county is managing the infrastructure.
Managing the infrastructure, setting policies,
Yes,
right?
of course.
So how would you perceive the dynamics if you shifted from countywide seats, a mixture of countywide seats and single-member districts to all single-member districts? How would you see the dynamics as it relates to our budget, as it relates to zoning, and as it relates to setting policies?
It is true, as has been said here tonight, that all the commissioners do work together. They're not going to let a baby drown in somebody else's district naturally. But it is also true that a county-wide commissioner who also is answerable to the Keystone area or the Balm area is going to add some leavening to what might otherwise be a very parochial administration of the budget. It is the district commissioners naturally are elected to bring home the bacon to their district. And if there was single-member districts, they would work as best as they could together. But I really believe in the leavening and the moderating forces of having the three county-wides. So in my opinion, it's not broke. And I don't see a lot of other citizens here saying it's broke. I hear, and even the county commissioners who have come and said that they think they could represent their district better if it were smaller, they have to admit that they're representing their district as well as they can. I don't see the need to move to 9. I think it would be more expensive, and I think more commissioners gets harder and harder to get to a consensus and to have a discussion. As I said, I just don't see that it would be more efficient.
In the sense of that people that live in the city of Tampa tend to let the city of Tampa or the incorporated part benefit more than the unincorporated part. What has been your experience as sitting on the county commission, and obviously as an activist too, because you've lived the growth and you've watched the growth? If you could explain that from the standpoint of the operating, the way it works.
So District 4, as you saw on the map, is very large, but it's relatively less population. We had to draw those maps with even population, first of all, in every district. So even though one's larger than the other, it's got the same amount of people. And that's the tricky part when you get down to dividing this area into 7 or 9. And that's why I say I can't sit here and guarantee that you would get you would have an opportunity to divide it in such a way to get a Hispanic seat or get 2 African American seats, certainly. I think that when South County was growing 20 years ago, And actually, this started in Keystone. I worked on Keystone's community plan as a citizen. When that grew first, and then they put their community plan in place, and then the growth came to South County. There was a sense that we weren't getting our share down there because all the commissioners lived in Tampa. But once that population started growing, they were able to elect a countywide representative and other representation. So now I think the population itself has stabled so that, especially if you have countywide commissioners, that gives better representation to the whole county that way.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Carlton, and then Dr. Collins. Go ahead, Ms. Carlton.
Yeah, thanks very much for being here today. I appreciate your perspective, both as somebody that dealt with commissioners and then became a countywide commissioner yourself. A point that's been brought up in the discussion as we've gone along, we've had lots of different opinions coming from lots of different perspectives on this board, which is a good thing. You talked about Keystone to Balm and representing, all over the place in a very large county. It's been argued here that a countywide commissioner really represents nobody. I can assume that you never felt like you represented nobody?
Correct, because, having been a citizen who was very active in the Keystone Community Plan, as well as the Balm Community Plan, as well as the Ruskin Community Plan, I was working with other activists across the county in environmental issues, in growth management issues. It's a large county, but it's not that large. I mean, it's not impossible to understand. I lived in Temple Terrace for 12 years. Then I grew up in Tampa. I lived in Ruskin for 25 years. So it's not hard to, it's not impossible to govern it from a countywide seat. I don't even understand the issue there.
That's great. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Dr. Collins, would you like to say something?
I certainly will. Thank you so much. Former Commissioner Smith, I want to thank you for your comments. I want to thank you for coming as a former commissioner and shedding the light. I want to thank you for acknowledging the great work that I'm going to say, you kind of acknowledged the work that you've seen that Commissioner Miles is doing. You also talked about that same concept of what's wrong with 7. I have believed, and I will say this as one of the citizen review listening to us as we've been meeting this year, I believe that when we were showed the numbers and we saw how great they were, what I've heard tonight is 9, maybe our max, 11 would be based off future future population growth, and then we ought to kind of cap it at 11. We shouldn't need any more. But your kind of profound statement that you made, that 9 might be bigger, but bigger is not better. And you also kind of discussed just now the kind of work that you did do countywide, despite the disparity, I would say, in the numbers. But you also made it clear, what would we get if we move from where we are, and it's working, and there's nothing wrong with it, that just the commissioners may need to get out there and work regardless of how many more they have. You've shedded a light on a whole lot of discussions that have been very meaningful for me, and it make me say that just because population has increased, perhaps it doesn't mean that we need to increase the seats and potentially increase the staff and all that at this time. And again, not worry about what they're doing in Tallahassee, and we should kind of maybe maintain where we are. So I thank you so much for coming out, but I think even more importantly for me in giving those correlations between what we've been discussing for months and what I heard here tonight from a number of current commissioners, and listening to your very valuable input. And as people have said, intrinsic value, whether it's intrinsic, it is. It definitely was not an extrinsic value input that you put in. So thank you so very much for coming out and sharing. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much.
Dr.
That means
Collins.
a lot to me. Thank you.
I'd like to recognize Mr. Taylor.
Perfect. Commissioner, thank you so much. I mean, we've been very fortunate that today we've been very heavy with commissioners and hearing the day-to-day operations, which is fantastic. I want to flip it, though, from the lens of a citizen, because I view it as 9 is a good thing. I view it as we're having growth. We've seen growth. We're probably being a bit reactionary now. We probably, our growth probably 10, 15 years ago probably warranted a shift, in my personal opinion, of additional representation. Growth is going to continue in this state, and so by going to 9, I'll just use single member as an example. If we go to 9 single member, that's about 73,000 citizens in a district who have greater access to their representative. Because to me, that's the point. We've heard so many examples of you're kind of at the mercy of who gets elected and how hard they work or how hard they don't work and what kind of staff they have, what kind of, the makeup of their staff. I've been an aide to a district commissioner. I've been an aide to an at-large commissioner. Yeah, there's differences, but, again, you're kind of at the mercy of how hard that elected is going to, grind away and represent as best they can. So from the citizen point of view, I think it's a good thing to have citizens that are going to have a greater ability to reach out to their elected. Do you see a value in if we did go to a 9 or even a 7-2? Because I know you've said you're fine with the current makeup, but if we went to a 7-2, makeup, 7 district, 2 at-larges, I mean, would that be something you would think would be amenable? And
I understand that perspective. I just really like voting for a majority. I like voting for 4. I think if I get to vote for 3, that has reduced my vote right there. That's reduced my voice on my county commissioners. When I call a county commissioner, if I'm calling my district commissioner about something, they know I may vote for them next time. If I'm calling the countywide, same thing. If I call another district commissioner, I'm not voting for them next time. So I feel like it does diminish my voice to vote for fewer commissioners.
And I've gone on the record, I think that it's a great thing. We're frankly an outlier, Hillsborough County, that we get to do that in this capacity. But again, it's an outlier. We vote for our 1 congressional seat, our 1 state house, 1 Senate. The majority of comparable county that are our size have all pivoted to a single member or single member plus a county mayor. So they've had to figure it out. If we do add several seats, we're going to have new individuals on the board anyways who are going to be brand new to the process. So there's going to be that learning curve of figuring it out. So I don't know how detrimental or of a setback that would be, knowing that Broward, Miami-Dade, Orange County, who's the newest.
The one thing I will say to you is that, say you're running a homeowners association, or like me in Ruskin with a community group, we're working on our community plan. We're going to call our county commissioners, or we have an issue, an environmental issue, and we go to our commissioners. The ones who are going to come down and meet with us are going to be our district commissioner and our 3 countywide commissioners. The other district commissioner isn't going to come down to McDonald's on 41 in Apollo Beach to talk to us about our community plan. Countywide, Commissioner Mark Sharp, I remember we took him out and boat to see Cockroach Bay and see some things going on there. Our countywides kind of have to keep in touch with us. So if you had all single members and you have something in your community and you want your commissioner to come see it, you're only going to get one down there. So, and he's going to have to tell the rest of the board and convince them, but none of them have to worry about your vote. So from a citizen perspective, I really like this for being accountable to me.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. I see I got a hand up. Ms. Snively, did you want to make some remarks?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted us to thank former Commissioner for joining us and making comments and input. I'm just having a hard time with, well, let me maybe you can help me understand why basically you think that based on the demographics and the growth that we've had in Hillsborough County, that it has not become more challenging for commissioners to represent their constituents with the growth that we have experienced in the last, even just the last 5 years, and the amount of constituents that each district represents. How has it not become more difficult to represent constituents?
I was a county commissioner for 4 years, so I can only, I can speak to that, and I can speak to my experience as a citizen. And as a citizen activist, I was active for decades with the board through periods of great growth. And as I say, we had countywide commissioners come down and have coffee with us. I can tell you, Rhonda Storms, Rose Ferlita, Sandy Merman, certainly they were our district commissioners, but also our countywide commissioners. I could write their office, I could call and talk to their aides. I would get a personal response back. And I ran my office that way. I know my colleagues ran their office that way. So has it gotten more difficult? Yes. Has the salary increased? Yes. Has the number of aides increased? Yes. Does the number of aides need to increase again at some point? Maybe. But I would not be here and say it's gotten out of hand. It's impossible. We can't handle this anymore. The 3 countywides are representing countywide. And I think, again, it just boils down to the person in the office is all I can say. It has gotten more difficult. There's more people, but it's not impossible.
Thank you. Those are very insightful remarks. I appreciate it. Any other questions or comments for Commissioner Smith? Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. It's been a very stimulating discussion. And again, I very much appreciate you all stepping up and doing this difficult but very important review of our charter.
Well, I think we appreciate you even more. Thank you. Yeah. Is there anyone else in the audience that wanted to speak tonight? I saw Mr. Thomas back there. And Mr. Schiff, did you wish to make some remarks? Yeah. You'll have to be brief. You'll be limited to 3 minutes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, before you speak, before Commissioner Myers leave, I think this is very important to put on the record. I think it's very important that what Commissioner Myers have said tonight be really cited in the minutes, in the record. This minority seat, and the pre-clearance issues, and the fact that the original charter, Mr. Chairman, was held up by the courts because of single-member districts. And so I think what the African-American elected county commissioner has to say related to districts, related to the structure of the county, as related to the county commissioner, is going to be extremely important to the community and to the courts. And so I wanted to put that on the record before she left tonight.
Yes, sir. Mr. Schiff.
Thank you.
How are you, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Charter Review Board members. My name is Gordon Schiff, 4155 West Cypress Street. I do have a few things to say. As you know, I spoke previously. I am not in favor, as a citizen, I am not in favor of expanding the county commission. I don't think it's necessary, and I think it's an appropriate mix as it exists today. But I hear you moving toward 9, so I'm going to speak to it. The importance of countywide commissioners. Our current system provides balance and accountability. 3 commissioners are elected countywide and must answer to all Hillsborough County voters. This ensures that every citizen has a voice in decisions that affect the entire county. Current representation, as you all know, today every voter is represented by a majority of the county commission. 1 single member district commissioner and 3 countywide commissioners. That means each voter helps elect 4 of 7 commissioners. The problem with all single-member districts. A proposal to create 9 single-member districts would take away this majority representation. You're focused on the wrong side of the equation, I believe. Each voter would only elect 1 of 9 commissioners. That is a drastic reduction in representation and a clear dilution of voting power. Even proposals that reduce countywide seats below 4 would weaken voter representation. For example, under a 9-member board with only 3 countywide seats, voters would elect just 4 of 9 commissioners, 44% compared to 57% today. A better approach, if you're going with 9 seats, you would do a 5-4 split. If the charter is amended to expand the commission from 7 to 9 seats, the solution is to preserve and strengthen representation. 5 single-member districts up from 4, 4 countywide districts up from 3. This approach provides more representation for every voter, from 4 commissioners today to 5 under the new plan, a 25% increase. It's fair geography. District 4's size and workload concerns would be eased. Obviously, you'd be doing some sort of line through District 4 to try and create another district. And then you'd be backfilling from the other districts. Stronger service. You'd have 5 county commissioners accountable to every citizen. No single office should be overburdened. Additional support from citizens, critical issue. Representation isn't just about commissioners. Legislative aides and, of course, staff at the county play a vital role. Adding just 1 more aide would increase support capacity by 50% for each county commissioner, and this change requires no charter amendment. Final point, any change must be acceptable to the voters. A proposal that reduces their voice is unlikely to pass, in my opinion. But if voters see that expanding 9 seats increases their representation and preserves majority influence, they may support it. So summary, if you want to propose expanding from 7 to 9 commissioners, the structure should be 5 single member and 4 countywide. The outcome, every citizen votes for a majority of commissioners with stronger and broader representation. The other alternative is my suggestion, and that is follow the words of Paul McCartney, let it be. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Schiff. Mr. Thomas, did you wish to make some remarks? You'll be limited to 3 minutes, sir. Please give us your name and address for the record.
Sir, William Thomas Jr. I am coming to you from the far reaches of the universe in Plant City.
Love it.
At 5602 Joe King Road, which is a stone's throw from the County Line Road. I'm here today, obviously I took an interest in attending the meeting today. I'm a little torn. I would not be honest if I didn't tell you that representing communities such as in the city limits, Lincoln Park, which is the African American community, Madison Park, which is the African American community, and Beesville, representation is difficult. And that is the reason why I'm here today, because yes, we are entertaining the proposition of expanding representation, because short of our District 4, and giving credit to even to Commissioner Myers, who I've seen in Plant City more often are countywide representatives in the Beesville area. Yeah, it is something we take dear to heart. So thank you for the opportunity to speak. Again, I say yes, I'll be one to initially say the process is not broken, but quite honestly, based on the past 10 years, this is something we're definitely looking and taking interest in. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other public comment? That'll close public comment. Wow. I think that's probably going to have to wind the meeting down. We have one official piece of business. We have to approve the minutes.
Motion to approve the minutes that were included in our packet.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Call for the vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign.
Aye.
Aye, thank you, sir. Motion carries. Obviously, next meeting is a continuation. We have all this supplemental material, which I was going to try to read into the record tonight, but we're not. There's not enough time. So please be sure to read the supplemental material that's come out in the last day, and we'll pick off where we left off next month's meeting. Any discussion, any suggestions? Did you enjoy all the content? I mean, we got a lot, yeah. How do y'all feel about it?
It was good
I
to
think
hear
we'll be
from
ready to make a motion at the next meeting.
Yeah,
That way we can deliberate over it together.
yeah. Well, great. Have a great month. We'll see you all next month. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.